So the last position that I tried this microphone in was on kick out. It seemed to me that with its extremely high SPL handling, it was kind of a no-brainer place to try it. And I was so impressed by the result of using it there that I figured it'd be a good idea to try doing a direct A/B shootout against a FET 47, which is my usual microphone choice for kick out. And it's one I've been using for years. I've used all kinds of different models of FET 47, from the original Neumanns to various knockoffs, Sound Deluxe and Bach and so forth. It's a mic that I have a good understanding of how it sounds. So when I was as impressed as I was by hearing the K2 in that application, I really wanted to be able to do a direct comparison. So I went ahead and I set up my 47 in front of my kick drum, and now I'm going to give you a little A/B action here. So I'll start with it in isolation so you can hear what that sounds like. Here's the K2 first. Let me turn the compression off. Here's the 47. So right away to my ear, the first thing that I hear is that there's a pretty obvious increase in the brightness, sort of the slap of the beater hitting the drum head. It's a lot more pronounced, and I think a lot more flattering on the K2. It's particularly obvious when I get to this busier section. You can really hear how that extra articulation helps with the clarity. Versus the 47. I feel like the pinpoint of the rhythm just gets lost a little bit there. So I went ahead and I did a quick EQ thing in an effort to try to kind of match the brightness and see how that might change our perception about how the two mics stack up against one another. So again, with the K2. And then the FET 47 with this little this EQ boost at about 4K. So what I'm hearing is the top end is pretty closely matched tonally, but there's this really cool thing happening in the bottom end of the K2 that's just a little more articulate. I think the low end transients are better reproduced or captured. Getting more of like a chest kind of feeling, and it really sounds like the kick drum sounds as I'm sitting at the kit and playing. And as it gets busier here, there's like a build up in low end as the kick pattern gets busier that I think the K2 is a lot better at reproducing than the 47. I feel the 47 gets a little murky and a little cloudy sounding, even with the additional treble boost. I'm going to go ahead and play it again for you to demonstrate. So here's the K2. And the 47. To my ear, that is a stark yet subtle difference. I mean, obviously the 47 is great. It's been used on a million records. I've been happy with it for the last decade plus, but there really is something about this Rode that just a little more 3D to my ear. It better represents and reproduces the real specific kind of rhythmic nuances, for better or worse, in my playing. With a better drummer, I'd be very pleased with that detail. Anywho, both mics, of course, are usable, but when you compare the cost of a 47 FET to the cost of a K2, it's a significant difference, and I think that the K2 easily outperforms it. I'm going to keep the the little treble boost on there. That's a common EQ I'm going to do anyway as I'm tracking. I'd probably turn that up on the console. But what I want to do is just kind of take a little listen to cymbal bleed and kind of how the rest of the kit sounds on the outside kick mic, because that's, for me, a common concern when I'm putting a mic on the outside of a kick drum is like, how much does it hurt when the drummer hits the ride cymbal too hard? And there's hardly any spill to speak of there. Let me check out the 47. Interestingly, I do feel that the snare is a little bit louder in that one, and it might be a function of this EQ. I do think it's a function of the EQ, but then you lose that extra articulation on the 47, which is kind of another positive in the K2 column here. So here I am on the ride. So you can hear I'm beating the hell out of the cymbals there. Let's check out how the FET performs there. This section right here is what I'm interested in hearing most. That's where it starts to just get a little bit on the harsh side. So that was the FET. Here's the K2. Pretty comparable. If I turn the EQ back on the FET, we get this. The K2. Same effect as before with the snare drum. The extra top end added to the FET brings out a little bit of harshness in the bleed, whereas with the K2, since we don't need to make that EQ move, we're left with ultimately a better bleed situation. Okay, so because this microphone is capable of handling insanely high SPLs, I thought, let's try it on snare. I normally wouldn't be putting in a large diaphragm tube mic on a snare drum. I don't know that I've ever actually done that, at least in like a close mic kind of way. But I thought, what the hell, let's see what it does. So I swapped snares just kind of on a whim here and ended up with this. Here's the K2 soloed. For me, that's kind of unremarkable. It didn't do much. And then I had a thought, well, I'd been using an Acrolite for all these other examples. For that snare thing just now, I threw up a Gretsch chrome over brass, which is a lot brighter and kind of more cracky. And the thing that I'm finding that I love about the K2 is the way it represents the low end. So I thought I should go back to the Acrolite and see what it sounds like with something that's like a little fatter. And ended up with this. It's soloed. Which definitely is more flattering than it had been on the chrome over brass. You know, pretty good hi-hat rejection. But again, it's not making me do backflips. It sounds good. It's not going to replace a 57 for me, especially because I plan on using this thing on kick out on all my upcoming drum sessions. But just for the sake of trying it and seeing what it did, it was interesting. I did it. I can say I did it. By the way, this is the 47 FET on kick, just to have some kind of kick pickup. And the last thing I wanted to do was check it out as a mono overhead. So again, I was really psyched on the way it did the front of kit. I thought maybe mono overhead would be a cool way to try it. Here's what it sounded like. Floor tom sounds really nice. But you can also hear that it's a little crunchy at the mic pre. That is by design. That is how I would typically use a mono overhead. I like kind of a crunchier mono overhead sound. It was good, not great. Not going to replace my Coles, which is my kind of go-to. But then I started wondering, well, if it were a little lower and more focused, what would that sound like? Because part of the issue I was having with this first position was that it didn't feel immediate enough. So I tried the second position, which was a little bit lower, and that sounded like this. Which for me is a pretty significant improvement. I'll play you the other one. It's just a little too blurry. Bringing it down the foot or so improved things. It sounds very coherent and kind of together. The downside was, as a player, it was in a somewhat precarious place as far as if I were doing, big, fast gospel chops, drum fills. If I could do those sorts of things, I probably would be whacking the thing with a stick. So if I was going to use this position, it would probably be on something minimal, like a folk record or like a really simple kind of R&B thing. And it compares favorably to my 4038. I didn't do a direct A/B because I'm lazy, but just knowing my room and knowing kind of what I have come to expect from a 4038 in that position, I feel like, obviously the 4038 is going to get more room. There's reflections coming off the ceiling and just a little bit more sort of general sound getting into the rear lobe. But of course it's darker. It's got a similar kind of mid-range, particularly when you push a preamp the way I like to do. And I guess if I were using the 4038 and feeling that things were a little too washy or splashy sounding with the room leakage, I would consider using this one and just asking the drummer to kindly not hit the mic with an errant drumstick. So there it is. Our microphone test is complete. The TF-5s are fantastic sounding overheads. They're detailed. They pick up a surprising amount of low end for small condensers and great imaging. The top end's really sweet. They get a lot of detail. They do all the stuff that you kind of want overheads to do, particularly if you're the type of recordist who prefers to grab a picture of the full kit as opposed to just cymbals, although they are excellent for that as well. You can always filter out all the low end or something if that's your thing. It did exactly as well as I expected it to, based on all that I've heard, all the hype about it. The K2, on the other hand, really shocked me. I loved it. I think that it's got this unbelievable soundstage, huge low end that's natural, nice open top end. I'm in shock that it beat the 47 FET on kick out. I mean, that really just kind of blows my mind. It was a great candidate all around. Like I said, I prefer the cardioid pickup pattern. It's a little more focused. I like the low end, the proximity effect when it was kind of in close on things. It really just seemed to be the most sort of present, real, kind of tangible sound of all the pickup patterns. But of course, in different applications, we will find different uses for it. I do intend to be using this mic a lot. In fact, I'm using it right now to record my voice. But I intend to be using this mic a lot more on a lot more sessions. So I'm really looking forward to finding what else it's great at. Thanks for watching. Hope this has been informative. I want to thank Rode. I want to thank Jason over at Rode for hooking me up with this stuff. And hope you guys are staying safe out there. Remember to wash your hands. And be cool. Have a good one.